So some of you might already know this, but I came out quite late, or at least late for me, late in comparison to most of the other people who I knew who were gay. I came out in my early 20s. So I spent a lot of time thinking I was straight, and I just wanted to create this video and talk about my experience of discovering the queer community and queer culture. Until I was about 21, 22, I'd met guys who were gay, and I've met a few girls who were bi, probably not that many, but I'd never met a gay woman. And you know, when I think about it now, that's a crazy thing. Like, I mean, we're talking what, like the 2010s, and I think it's crazy to think that only about, you know, maybe 6 years ago that I could have gone literally the whole of my life without meeting a gay woman. I'd felt different my whole life, really, but for a lot of different reasons. There were a lot of reasons for that, but it was only later on that I realised that my sexuality and my gender had played a part in that. I remember the first time I watched Blue is the Warmest Colour. So it's a lesbian film for any of you who haven't heard of it or seen it. And I remember, you know, that the first time I watched it, it was really popular actually, I think in the UK and Ireland. It was a French film, and all of the audio was in French, and it wasn't dubbed in English, it just had English subtitles. And the first time I watched that, I just, you know, watching the characters and scenes with the, you know, like the gay bar scene, just seeing how the characters dressed and how they presented and how they felt and how they interacted with each other, that was a huge realisation for me in terms of, both in terms of how I felt about myself, how I felt about my own gender, and also how I felt about my sexuality and the people who I was attracted to. The queer community just wasn't something that I'd been involved with. I mean, I went to an all-girls convent school, not for religious reasons, but it was the closest school to where I was. It was the local school, and it was also the school where most of the girls at my primary were going to, so most of my friends were going there, and it just made logical sense for me to go there. So yeah, it was a convent school, and there weren't many nuns still teaching there by the time I started. But I think a lot of that probably played a huge role because, you know, it was just a combination of everything. I mean, you know, I was going to a convent school, and that wasn't something that was really, you know, sexuality definitely wasn't something that was really talked about, I don't think, in school. You know, it's not something that we were made very aware of. And then, you know, I didn't go out to gay bars or anything like that. It wasn't, you know, in the town where I was, you just sort of went to where you went to the clubs, and, you know, they were very much straight clubs, really. And yeah, so it wasn't something that I was involved with. And I hadn't, one of the huge things was that I hadn't, you know, now I would be attracted to a lot of androgynous women. You know, a lot of the women that I'm attracted to are quite androgynous, they're quite queer in the way that they present. And, you know, I was predominantly surrounded by, you know, women who weren't like that, who didn't present like that. So I wasn't, for the most part, I wasn't around women who I was attracted to. So my sexuality just wasn't something that I'd thought about. I think there probably were a lot of signs. I mean, a lot of the guys that I was attracted to, certainly in my teenage years, were very feminine, very, very androgynous. But, you know, beyond that, it just wasn't something that I thought about. After I came out, when I actually started to really get involved in the queer community, and I started volunteering, I was volunteering for one of the charities, and I was going to the meetup groups, and there were just, because I was in London, there were just so many spaces, you know, where you could go if you were queer. And, you know, it was just amazing for me, not just because, you know, I had a better understanding of my sexuality, but just being around other people who really felt like me, you know, understanding that it was okay to not always want to be super feminine, or, you know, to not always feel comfortable in dresses. You know, sometimes I did and sometimes I didn't, but I often felt like I was, you know, I felt much more attractive wearing like much more androgynous clothing, and just being around other people who understood that and who felt the same way that I did was really, it was just really freeing, and it felt like a really liberating, empowering thing. You know, I remember saying to my mother, actually, I said to her, I feel like a woman, but I just feel like a different kind of woman. And I didn't have any words for that. I didn't have any labels for that. You know, this was probably, you know, this might have been after the time that I came out, but it was before I was familiar with terms like genderqueer and things like that. And I had no words really to express it specifically beyond that. But it was just an amazing thing for me to really feel like part of the LGBTQ plus community, and to just find that there were other, you know, that there were other people who felt like me, who, you know, often, who didn't always feel feminine, you know, other people who felt androgynous the way that I did, and just other people who felt like me. If this has felt like it was relevant to you in any way, then, you know, I'd love for you to leave a comment, or go onto my Instagram and, you know, you can contact me, leave me a comment on there. Also, if you'd like to see more of my videos, then please hit the subscribe button, and I will see you soon.